My name is Saba, and I'm the CEO of the Advocacy Academy. And I'm a British Pakistani. I've lived in the UK since I was about 3-4 years old. I went to school here in London, and I've been working at the Advocacy Academy now for 8 years and been CEO for the last 5. I also sit on the board of the Joseph Rowntree Reform Trust and also the Tudor Trust as well. And my background wasn't always in social justice and working in the charity space. Actually, my first pathway was in mathematics. I very much followed the pathway of my mother and my father, who were both in the sciences. And I eventually found my way here because I think I absorbed enough of the discussions about Pakistani politics from my community and from my family that I decided that I wanted to spend more time thinking about politics in London and what it means for the future generation to be a part of building it.
You said British Pakistani. So how has being a British Pakistani shaped the way you think about power, community, and organizing?
Like I said, for me, I think some of my earliest memories are hearing my uncle and my aunties talking about politics, UK politics, US politics, Pakistani politics. And even though it was really important for me and for my parents that I go into study a field which they felt would set me up better for life, mathematics at the time, I think that spirit of being politically engaged and caring about how power works and how society gets framed is very much a part of my life from a very early beginning. I grew up knowing the value of community. I grew up in a neighborhood in London that didn't have very much. Everybody was looking out for each other. People would pick each other's kids up from school. You would all go around to each other's houses after work or after school, and people would be sending food to each other on a regular basis. It was a part of how I grew up, and I didn't have any brothers or sisters, so that bigger community was really important to me, especially because most of my family was back in Pakistan. And so for me, that idea of community and politics, I really grew up with that. And it was a part of my life from a very early stage. And I think there's also that sense that I think is very true within the community of you look after each other. And I think a concept that's often get talked about, I think more especially after COVID, was this idea of mutual aid. And I think there are lots of Desi communities and Pakistani communities, Muslim communities, where mutual aid is embedded in it gets talked about in a different way. I think about all the remittances that get sent back to Pakistan. I made a joke the other day about some of my early memories about Western Union as part of some of my early memories of childhood. And also the way that, and every time I hear of some of the families that I know here are always giving back to Pakistan, always setting up new charities, always thinking about ways to give back, ways to go back. And that sense of mutuality, community, and equality is embedded in faith, in the community, and in the practice. And I think it's felt very deeply, especially in the UK, where you can sometimes be very easy to feel like you are othered, and that there isn't as much respect or value given to who you are.
So this cultural background that you have, how do you see this, your cultural background and the way you work with young campaigners today? How does that all come together? Do you think it plays a part at all, if it does?
I think that my values are definitely a part of the work that we do. I think that the biggest way that it plays a part in my current work is that I end up doing, now that I'm the CEO, I feel like I'm not as much working on a day-to-day basis with our young people. But every now and again, like every month or so, I'm working with a couple. They'll be spending more and more time in the offices, or they'll be doing a campaign where I'll be much more involved with them than I would have been 5-6 years ago when we were a lot smaller. And in those moments, I find myself reflecting on how my journey and my experience of being a British Pakistani and growing up in the UK is important for young people to hear. And then what does it mean for I've been oftentimes find myself being surprised at how important it is that they hear and understand my story, and that it is actually different to what other people might be experienced as being children of a diaspora. And that could be anything from what it means to grow up relatively in poverty and still be trying to achieve what you would want to in the world. It can be about what it means to navigate more professional corporate spaces. It could be also just the simplicity of navigating what it means to want to give back to your community first, by making money before you go off and do politics. Like, that's also okay. Sometimes in the world of social justice and activism, it's like any discussion about making money can sometimes be really frowned upon, but so much of the reality of what our young people are facing is they might be one of the only or one of a few breadwinners of the family. And what does it mean for them to navigate their desire to give back to the community at large, the desire to do social justice, but also the real necessity of needing to look after their family first.
So you've worked across finance, and now you're leading a national organization. What has this journey taught you about leadership?
Oh gosh, I mean, I feel like the first thing that comes to mind is leadership is really hard, but I think that's very on the nose. I think that leadership is very humbling. I think it's probably the biggest thing that I have learned. Certainly coming out of the corporate space and out of the finance world, I would say I definitely thought that then moving into the charity world that I knew everything that I needed to know. I used to be work in management consultancy, and I think that you were taught there that with very limited information you can understand the true levers of anything that you do. And to actually run something and to create something from scratch and to navigate the challenges of that is very different. If I think about financial leadership, taught me what it means to enter into a room and to have the polish and presentation. That's a very specific kind of leadership. The kind of leadership that I've learned here has been much more humbling. It's been about the realities of building something that has genuine impact, not just impact that can tick a box. Not just numbers on a piece of paper, but that truly transforms people's lives. It's hard work, and you don't always get it right. And sometimes you get it really wrong, and people will tell you. Young people will be the first to tell you you've gotten it wrong. And it's a real lesson that leadership isn't about knowing all the answers. It's about being able to steer something through the uncertainty of today.
So through your work with young people, what challenges are you seeing for the next generation, particularly within the diaspora communities?
I think, first of all young people are facing the challenges of what it means to be growing up within a time of polycrisis. We have the rise of very clear examples, visible examples of how climate change will wreak havoc across the world. We have the rise and uncertainty around AI and their use of technology that's creating unbelievable pressures for young people, especially already at schools, and already in some of them who are trying to find work outside of education as well. Beyond with these two pressures and then their impacts, increased migration, we're seeing the rise of the far right. Young people are facing a lot of uncertainty and unknowns. And then what it means for the diaspora, we are seeing, as I mentioned, with the rise of the far right, and also with climate change. What does it mean to know that their home countries, or the countries where their parents have grown up, where they will have some sort of cultural identity or connection, will be maybe the first to be impacted? And what does it mean for them to live in relative safety? What does it mean for them to be the first to experience the cost of living crisis at the bluntest edge of decision making, and for the far right to be having a very direct impact on their sense of safety and security?
I'm sure there are many moments, but what has been that one most powerful moment you've witnessed through the Advocacy Academy? If you could name one.
If I could name one. There was a beautiful moment when we first secured this building. Um, we received the building in part due to a number of different donations from some very wonderful partners. But this was something that wasn't in the cards for a very long time. We got it after being, you know, metaphorically homeless for a year, having been kicked out of a previous venue that we had been using for our HQ. And when we secured the lease for this place, we were given it for 10 years with the option to renew for another 10. And for the first time, we felt there was that sense of believing that we had some solidity to what we were going to create. And the day I put my signature on the lease. But definitely the day before the lease technically started, little legal gray area. So we invited our young people to come into the space, and it was empty. You can sort of see the background here. Now it's full of all of our materials, but at that time, blank walls, no color, all concrete. And there were maybe 40 of us in the room last minute, and we decided to make our mark, even if it would be paved over later. And so downstairs at the Liberation Center, you can still see the marks of all of the young people who wrote their favorite phrases from activists and social leaders of the past. Some of them put flags of their home countries on the floor. Some of them just wrote their name. Like, I think there's always a tradition of "I was here," like I think transcends through generations. But it was a beautiful moment, and it felt, I think, really meaningful after a hard fight. I'm going to take a pause. No, it's all good.
So when you think about young people that you work with, what gives you the most hope right now?
We work with young people to help them design their own campaigns for the future. And they are smart and driven and are capable of a level of hope, determination, and creativity that I think we genuinely lose as we get older. And with that in place, they're able to win. And I think there's something that's quite special about that. Young people have been the catalyst for almost every social change movement in the 20th and 21st centuries that have improved our lives. And the reasons for that is that they don't have that voice in the back of their head telling them that it's probably not possible. And as a result, it means that what they tend to do with a bit of training, with a bit of support, tends to happen. And seeing that will, that determination, and the expectation of success is really important and always something that gives me hope for the next generation.
So what advice would you give to someone who wants to create change and feels overwhelmed by the scale of problems around them, social issues or whatever, world politics?
I think there's an expectation that you're supposed to be angry about the bigger problems of the world. That when you hope for something better, you're supposed to say world peace or the end of human hunger. But I think that the best change starts a lot smaller, and the most powerful activist stories that I have heard have started because somebody was angry about what happened to their neighbor, or what happened to their school, or their local library that got shut down because of cuts, or because the person who used to run their local newsagent who'd say hello to them in the morning has having to close their shop because of increased gentrification in the area. Those are the stories that really impact, and I think my first piece of advice is that you don't have to perform the big conversation. Think about what makes you angry, what makes you feel unjust about the world as it is today, and start there. And for some people, I would say that for everybody, that should feel deeply personal. And once you can get to something that feels really personal, that's a really good starting point. And then, thanks to the wonders and sometimes the horrors of the internet, which the internet will reward specificity, undoubtedly there will be somebody else who's probably angry about the same thing. And from that place of personal passion and anger, you'll find other people. You can start from there. if you were lucky enough to be based in South London, you can come and hang out at the Advocacy Academy. We do a How to Make Change course I think it's every Tuesday, and it happens about twice a year now. If you're also doubly lucky to be between the ages of 16 and 30, you can join the Advocacy Academy yourself. So there are definitely lots of organizations doing the work. I guess my final piece is, don't feel that you have to read all of the political texts of the 20th and 21st centuries to have done your homework to do activism. You really don't need to do any of that. As a mathematics kid, it's not important.
So looking ahead, final question. What kind of impact do you hope your work will leave behind?
Sure. I mentioned the poly crisis before. The UK is facing a real confrontation with its past, its present, and its future, and young people do not have the power to impact or influence that in any way. There's always a lot of discussion in politics about why politicians don't listen to young people, as if that's a right or an expectation in of itself. But in our current society, you have the power that you are able to compel. And young people don't have the power to compel politicians yet. The Advocacy Academy wants to build that power for young people and wants them to be seen as respected in their own right, not patronized and judged for simply being younger than other voting groups. For me, the best thing that we can hope for is that we leave behind a culture and a tradition of youth organizing within the UK, as exists within UK, France, Brazil, and other places around the world. Because for me, that ensures that we have a thriving community across the country that will be able to weather the changes that are to come. Thinking more tangibly, we are about to launch a number of national coalitions, one the first in climate, the second around gender equity. I hope that they will prove to some of the people who like the idea of young people having power, but tend to not actually want young people to have power, to show to them that young people are capable and ready to be on that stage. And that, I hope, will happen well enough in time for the next election.
Saba, thank you so much for talking to BPF, and best of luck with everything.
Thank
you so
you.
much.